Okay, everybody, we're got just one more minute as folks are popping in, but just wanted to say hello to those of you that have joined us so far. Kind of right here in the thick of the summer, so hopefully everybody's been having a great summer, getting some time to spend with family, but also still working hard. So it's great you guys are joining us today. So today we've got Joe Anderson with us with Reliability X, the DNA of success. Joe's been around the industry quite a long time now. Good friend of ours, always a wealth of knowledge. So we're excited to have him here today. Talking about a topic we don't cover as often as we probably should. We're typically busy talking all things ultrasound, but today we're going to dive into kind of the softer skills and talk about the challenges of being a leader. So I know Joe's got a lot of passion around this subject and really wanting to be helpful to folks and provide some guidance. So I think that'll come through in his presentation. Before we get started, just some housekeeping, typical things to share with you guys. We are recording this, so that was great. Joe was willing to let us do that. So if you have to hop off early, or if you have a boss who you think needs some help learning his leadership skills or whatnot, you can share this video with him afterwards. So we'll get this up on our website a little bit later today. Also, we always welcome questions. We know, it'd be nice if we were all in a room together, but it's cool that we at least have some capability to do some interaction. So there's a little questions box. Feel free to type those in anytime throughout the presentation. I'll be monitoring those, and I'll get questions tossed over to Joe throughout the presentation when it makes sense, or of course at the end as well. Then of course, just always like to remind that we are doing this live, which is great. But if we do run into any internet issues or audio issues, just bear with us. We'll try and get things resolved as quickly as we can. We don't want to waste anybody's time, but sometimes these things happen. So just pointing that out. And so with that, I am going to turn the screen over to Joe and let him get started.
All right, thanks, Maureen. Thanks for having me. As always, it's a pleasure, and I appreciate everything that you guys have done for me. And I just look forward to giving back a little bit. Hopefully this adds some value today. So what I want to cover is the challenges of being a leader, but I want to take a different approach and look at overcoming some of the myths that we have behind leadership, and then talk about the three areas that we need to focus on as leaders, but specifically one that seems to be a difficult point, and that is to lead up, which would be anybody above you. So I'm going to go through that. And these principles I've taken from John Maxwell's book, The 360 Degree Leader. So this comes straight out of this book. I recommend this book highly to anyone that's looking to improve as a person or to help influence an organization. Let's see. There we go. So there's typically three common questions that I get asked a lot of times when it comes to leadership, and these are those three questions. One is, how can I implement what I've learned about leadership when I'm not the top person? And there's a stigma about having to be in charge or being this top person that we put. It's kind of a mental block in our head, thinking that we can't lead. But that depends on how we define leadership. And then, is it possible to lead well if I'm not the top dog? Again, another top question, but again, it's very specific, and people always seem to ask this question. And then, what if the person you work for is a bad leader? How would you handle that? So I'll try to cover some of those things as well within this. So what is a leader? What is leadership? And what people need to understand is number one, leadership is not a position. It's the ability to influence others. And so whether you're the janitor or you're the CEO, your influence determines whether people are going to follow you and follow you well. Now, you can be a bad leader where you utilize your position to force people to follow you, but they're only doing it because they have to, not because they want to. Your goal as a leader is to develop the desire for people to want to follow and then to multiply them into leaders as well. And 99% of leadership, it comes from the middle of the organization. There's always a huge gap. At least it's been my experience in just about every organization that I've dealt with. Again, the 99, which is what I'm used to dealing with, is your CEO and your top tier management and your shop floor management. Or your shop floor employees. There's always a disconnect, and that disconnect is because of terrible communication from middle management, and that always seems to be a problem within the organization. And then if you understand influence-based leadership, you can lead others from anywhere in the organization. If you have influence, um, your ability to lead becomes stronger. If you think about it, if there's any managers here, the mechanic that you seek his knowledge the most, right? He's a person of influence. He's one of the leaders in your shop, and you seek his influence. You seek his opinion on things. You try to understand. He's a person of influence. He's developed that ability to influence you and to help you as a leader. And then leadership it's about choices that we make. It's not about what our position is in the organization. And once you choose to become a leader, you can make a difference. It doesn't matter where you are in the organization. So to cover the 7 myths, these are the typical 7 myths that people cling to. And the thing is if you've fallen for one of these myths, we've got to learn how to lead better to overcome those myths and understand what true good leadership is. So myth number 1 is the position myth, which 2 of the 3 questions that I'm commonly asked is around position. It's I can't lead if I'm not at the top of the organization. Right? And John Maxwell had a great quote in the book where he says influencing others is a matter of disposition, not position. And what disposition is a person's qualities, their character, all those things that build that person as somebody that's trainable, wants to learn, tries to influence others, tries to help others, and those types of things. And he also has the 5 levels of leadership. And within those 5 levels, this is where the understanding comes in. Most good leaders are level 4 leaders. Level 5 leaders are chosen by the people, right? So to run through those right quick, level 1 is position, right? I got promoted to supervisor, so now I have this position of leadership, and there's certain rights that you're given in that position as a leader. But people are either forced to follow you or they choose to follow you based on your influence. If you're a terrible leader, people are forced to follow you. If you're a good leader, people want to follow you. At level 2, once you're given the position, right, people give you permission to lead because they see that you care about them. You're developing the relationships. You're doing the things that you should be doing to influence others. To get to a level 3 leader, it's due to results. So now you have relationships. People are following you because they want to follow you. But are you producing results? Right? So your window of influence will be short-lived if you're not accomplishing anything. And then people say, well, he's just a really good people person. I like him, but he never gets anything done. And so to advance to that level 3, you've got to get results. You've got to remove obstacles for people, empower people to do things, show them that there's a better way. And level 4 is a focus on them and developing others. I think 4 and 5 are rampantly missing today, at least within this country, is the ability to develop others and the focus on other people. If you knew that 85 to 90% of your problems in your plant are people related issues, but we focus on the 10 or 15% of the machine related issues. Why is that? And I have opinions about it, but I would think, us as people, um, we're more introverted today than we used to be. We don't talk to people as much as we used to. We don't interact. So the technical problems are easy for us. We go out, we fix the machine, nobody bothers us, and we do those things. To solve the people issues, we actually have to invest time and money in people. And you see organizations all the time that become capital dependent, thinking that if I replace this machine, my problems go away. And they put the new machine in, and those problems still exist. And the reason for that is it's not a machine problem, it's a people problem. And we don't invest in people, we don't train, we don't develop. And the goal as a leader at level 4 is to reproduce other leaders. It's the law of multiplication. You want to reproduce those people that want to be where you are. Then level 5 is given by the people. So it's not something you can attain, it's an area that people put you. And they put you on a pedestal and say, I love what you represent. I love what you've been doing. You care about me. You're a level 5 leader. And that's what he's getting at there. So myth number 2 is the destination myth. And that's the, when I get to the top, then I'll learn how to become a leader. And you hear these excuses all the time. It's when I become a leader, I'll do things different. Or if I was the leader of this organization, I would do things different. And I've been guilty of this as well. And I've had to understand that it's my job to lead up, to help influence and help this person, instead of using this as an excuse as to why my performance is subpar. And so, good leadership is actually learned down in the trenches. And leadership's it's a lifelong learning process. You continually grow, you continually evolve. If you can't lead over the little things, then how are you going to start leading when the stakes are higher? You've got to acquire the thinking, in your current position, and improve in your current position, and increase that influence. And the goal isn't just to daydream about it. You actually have to prepare and plan and execute. And the question then comes is, what are your priorities? So myth number 3 is the influence myth. And that's if I were at the top, then people would follow me. Which if I were the CEO, or if I were the maintenance manager, I was a director of maintenance, then people will follow me. And people with no experience in leadership, they seem to overestimate the importance of the title. And it's not a reward that you're granted. It's responsibilities that come with that. The influence doesn't work that way. Influence has to be earned. A position gives you the opportunity to try out leadership, and it asks people to give you the benefit of the doubt for a while. So once you get promoted, people give you a little bit of time. But if you don't develop the level of influence on the good side that you should, then people will quit following you. And good leaders will gain an influence beyond their position, whether you're a supervisor, maintenance manager, or the CEO. And then bad leaders, they always shrink down their influence. That's actually less than whenever they came into the position. Because when you came into the position, people were giving you the benefit of the doubt. Okay, the inexperience myth. So it's when I get to the top, I'll be in control, which means I can change things, I can do this, I can do that. Um, but I think Andy Stanley said it best, that if you're a leader and leaders work for you, they think they can do the job better than you, which in a way, it's a good thing. You want leaders under you. And if they can do it better, they're going to provide value. If you're a bad leader, this scares you. And it scares you because you know that at any moment this person could take your job. And so what we seem to do as leaders is we hire people that aren't as good as us or better. We hire people, with less skill and less experience and less influence. That way it makes us look good. But when we do that, we're only destroying ourselves and our organization. We have to have good people around us. And I mean, this is leadership 101. Every leader that's good thinks that they can do a better job, but that doesn't mean that they don't follow you. They want to help you. They want you to succeed, to get promoted. That way you bring them with them. The desires to innovate, to improve, to create a better way, those are all leadership characteristics. But without having experiences like being the top person in an organization, you overestimate the amount of control that you have at the top. Because the higher you go, the larger the organization, the more you realize that there's a million other factors that control the organization. It's not you as the CEO. And then when you're at the top, you need a huge amount of influence, all the influence you can muster, because now you have a million things that you've got to try to influence. And it doesn't give you total control, and it doesn't protect you. You're the CEO. Now you're in the spotlight. It's like being the president of a country. No matter how good or bad you do, or anybody else under you does anything wrong, you're to blame, and you're the one that gets kicked out. And so you see CEOs forced to resign all the time because now you are the leader of the organization. So if you think it through a little bit, being at the top, it has its own set of challenges that we have to understand and know that just because you're
Oop, Joe, I think we lost your audio. Are you there?
What happened there, Mo?
I'm not sure. Hey, Joe.
No.
Sorry, guys. Like I said, live TV here. I wonder if he
Nope.
just is.
it's you actually.
Oh, Joe, you there?
Back.
Yeah, did I lose audio?
Yeah, we lost you there for just 30 seconds or so.
Okay. All right.
But you're back.
So myth. What's that? Okay. Am I good?
Yes. Now we hear you.
Sound good.
Okay. Okay. All right. So the freedom myth, myth number 5, it ties again to basically myth number 4. But people think when they get to the top, now they're free. They're not limited by anything. What they don't realize is when they get to the top, you're now limited by every variable within the organization. It's not, I just snap my fingers and have my way, and this is the way it works. You got to understand that when you move up in an organization, the weight of your responsibility increases. In a lot of cases, you realize that the amount of responsibility increases faster than the amount of the authority that you receive and pay, right? You're taking on 10 times the responsibility for, 2 times the pay. And the higher you go, the more that's expected of you. When you're a supervisor, you're expected to do X. When you're a maintenance manager, it's XYZ. When you're a director, now it's XYZ and half of the alphabet. As you move up as a CEO, now it's a whole alphabet and then some numbers in there. And the decision's way more heavy. So if I make a decision for the organization at the top, I'm going to influence not just a plant, but the whole organization, where at a supervisor level, I'm only affecting maybe the line that I'm in charge of if I make a decision. And so your impact is a lot greater. and so is your responsibility. So I'll give you an example. So you have a position in maintenance, and you're pretty good at it. You fix a lot of issues, you work well with others, you save the company a whole lot of money, you're avoiding downtime, giving them availability. And as a maintenance person, you might have a lot of freedom, right? You take a breaks, people don't bother you when you're doing a good job. You kind of do whatever you want to do. You get your work done, and you have the freedom to walk around, talk to people, do stuff that you want to do, right? And if you drop the ball, you're more likely to recover, right? But now let's say you become a maintenance manager and you're over people that used to do what you do. And now you're more limited than you were before. You can't work on whatever projects you want because you have to work around the schedule of your employees. You have to go to meetings. You have to do all this other stuff. Where as a mechanic, I could work on the projects I wanted. I could tell my boss, this is what we need to focus on. He'd let me do it. As a maintenance manager, that freedom starts to go away. And now you've got to worry about everybody that's underneath you. And so if you're a good leader, you want your employees to use their own experiences to make good decisions. So your goal is to try to influence them to do that. And you are sacrificing the things you want to do to develop other people. So myth number 6 is the potential myth, which is I can't reach my potential if I'm not the top leader. The thing is that in the position you're in, you should always strive to be the best and improve and get better and not strive to get to the top of the organization. That will come, people will notice you when you're doing great work, and that will allow you to advance. It's if your only striving is, well, I'll do it whenever I get promoted, you're probably never going to get promoted. And the other piece is you can't be that shining superstar that you don't have a replacement for because you're not promotable. What'll happen is, yeah, you might be the best mechanic and you might have great influence, but if you're the only one that can do what you do and you haven't shared that potential with others, then they're not going to want to promote you because if they promote you, they lose the best person that there is in the department in that position. So you've got to learn to develop others and try to up their game and help them so that you can be promotable. And a lot of times you make a greater impact from a position other than the top. Like I said, middle management drives most organizations, depending on the size. But so the goal here would be to be content with your position as you strive to max out your influence. Right? Eventually your time will come, trust me. And how many times, does a child say when they grow up that they want to be the vice president of the United States? Most people say, I want to be the president of the United States, or I want to be the CEO of the company. No one as a child says, I want to be the vice president of quality. It's the CEO of the organization that they strive for. Hardly anybody strives to reach mid-level management as a kid. We only want to be the top of the organization. What they don't understand is most of us will spend our lives in the middle, somewhere in the middle. And so we need to maximize that potential, maximize that influence. And myth number 7 is the all or nothing myth, which means if I can't get to the top, then I'm not going to try to lead. And a lot of people become frustrated, because they define success as being on top. And so if they're not on top, they're not successful. And if that frustration lasts long enough, they'll just quit trying at all. And then as a result, they become, illusioned and bitter and cynical. And if it gets to that point, instead of helping out the organization, they become a hindrance and possibly toxic. and not someone you want to be around. The key to overcoming that is to focus on influence and to develop others. We have a epidemic in this country with depression and loneliness and those types of things that, many people try to get out of and try to overcome. And I think a lot of the reason for that, um, outside of mental illness, is because we don't focus on others. We're so focused on ourselves, um, that when anything bad happens, uh, we're focused on others and the development of others. Um, I mean, what greater gift is that to see others succeed? So when you spend time focusing on others, it takes up the space that you've allowed to creep in, that you focus on that frustration or whatever. And so it helps you get your mind off of it. So those are the 7 myths. And so some of the principles of influence, as we talk about leadership being influence, is there's 3 levels of influence, right? There's those that follow you, there's your peer level group, and then there's everybody above you. And so there's 3 levels to it. Even if you're a mechanic, you have people that follow you. You've created influence, whether good or bad. You've created influence. So you have people that look to you, ask you your opinion, those types of things. Your peers would be those that don't seem to follow you, um, but they're the same position, I would say, as you. And then anybody above you is basically your boss. And so helping followers, we talked about developing them and focusing on them and empowering them and doing some of those things. That will develop influence with those. With your peers, for example, if you're a maintenance manager, you have the ops manager, the quality manager, safety manager, that group. With your peers, it's more about eliminating their stress. And what can I do to eliminate their stress? And so reducing downtime, getting quality under control, helping support the safety initiative, those types of things help reduce the stress of your peers. So it's easy to create influence. But managing up seems to be a struggle. And a lot of that is because they should be the ones leading us, and that's the way that we see it. But if leadership is influence, the question is are you influencing your boss to make better decisions? And so that's what we'll focus on more for the rest of this time. And that's the ability to lead up. So there's a few principles we'll go through. And principle 1 is leading yourself exceptionally well, right? At first, you got to get your own house in order before you should want to lead anyone else. So making sure you're taking care of yourself, you're growing, you're learning, making decisions and changing the way you do some things and focusing on some of the gaps and increasing your strengths, right? It's focusing on you. And a major area when it comes to wanting influence is credibility. So here's 7 tips that I have on gaining credibility. 1, you have to manage your emotions well. Me, I'm a very emotional guy, and I've had to learn how to do this over the years, and I'm still not very good at it, but I'm working on it. And that's handling your emotions. Because the first thing I want to do is jump up and scream that I don't agree. And that's not the right way to go about it. You lose credibility in the eyes of all those around you. 2 is managing your time. And that's thinking about what you do, how you spend your time, what your priorities are. Are you focusing on the most important things? Right. And a lot of that is looking at meetings. As a manager, you probably have 70% of your time booked in meetings when all that's needed to be sent is an email. And so I was hated for this, but there's a lot of times I wouldn't attend meetings. and because it wasn't as important to me as driving reliability in my plant and improvement. And so, of course, I would talk to the leaders, I'd communicate, say, hey, if there's something you need from me, let me know, but there's no value for me in this meeting. I think you're just attaching me in here just to be here. And so we came to an agreement. Of course, there's communication. I didn't just not show up. Manage your priorities. You know, stop doing all the stuff that you want to do and then get some of the junk and get rid of it as well. What we do is we have a list of 600 things, and we do the 12 things that we really love to do while our backlog just keeps getting bigger and bigger. What we've got to do is learn how to manage those correctly, because there's things that are important that you're not going to want to do, but they need to get done. 4 is managing your energy. And so, like I said, I'm an emotional guy, adrenaline rush, and then you come down from that and it drains you throughout the day, creates a lot of stress. So learning how to manage that and managing your energy levels, taking care of your health, which everybody that knows me knows I'm a perfect picture of health. I'm kidding. But, you know, working on that. And then managing your thinking. Okay. Not allowing negativity. There's so much negativity in the world. And depending on what you do and just being busy doesn't mean you're getting anything done. And taking a step back and taking some time just to think a little bit and get your life straight. And then managing your words. Okay, words carry weight. And so if you say something, say it well. And I am very guilty of this, and something that I'm working on as well. And then managing your personal life. Everybody knows that our personal life affects everything that we do at work. And so if we can manage these things, we manage ourselves well, we gain more credibility. Principle number 2 of leading up is you know, helping lighten your leader's load. And there's one of 2 things you can do as an employee under a leader, and that is you can either make the load lighter or you make it heavier. And what I've never wanted to be was that guy that was a burden to my boss. I always tried to do things to lighten their load, to help them out. I want to see them succeed, right? If you lift up the load, you know, you help your leader succeed. And when the boss succeeds, the organization succeeds. And, you know, if your boss fails, what does that mean for you? I mean, it's going to be really hard for you to win if your boss wins. And then motives matter as well. So a lot of people will say, well, lightening your leader's load, you're just being a suck up. And that isn't the case. Right. Now, if you go in there to try to win his favor versus just trying to help, those are 2 different things. Now, if I go in there and I'm just brown nosing and trying to win his favor, but I never do any other work because I just want him to like me so I can get away from doing any work, that's sucking up. But going in and helping your boss lift the load off his shoulders, that's a So here are a few tips to lift the load. First, you've got to be able to do your own job well. You know, don't ask to help when your own job isn't being done. Don't go to your boss and say, hey, what can I do to help you out when you haven't even completed your task? Right? And when you find a problem, provide a solution. You know, don't just go in there and say, hey, we got all these problems, and then walk out. Provide a solution. What are you going to do to fix it? Well, what do you recommend? What are some of the things that you can do to make this problem go away? And then this one's a difficult one for some, but telling leaders what they need to hear and not what they want to hear. But you got to be diplomatic about it. You don't walk in and just blast them, but you be diplomatic about it and not just be a yes man, telling them what they want to hear, trying to curry favor. The goal isn't currying favor. The goal is to lift the load so that you develop influence with your boss and go the extra mile. All right. And Zig Ziglar, he always said it well. There are no traffic jams on the extra mile. There's hardly any traffic on the extra mile. So go the extra mile. when you do more, then you're going to stand out. If you want to be promotable, this is one of the key factors that people look at. Do you go the extra mile? Do you do things when you're asked? Do you help lift the load? Or do you have credibility? Do you have influence? Right? And then stand up for your leader whenever you can. Now, I'm not saying if he does something unethical or illegal or whatever, you defend him. That's not what I'm saying. But when they make a decision, you've got to find a way to back them up, unless it's detrimental to the organization. But it might not be the way you'd go about it, but you don't want to talk bad about them, you know. So once the decision's been made, you've got to go out and execute it as if it was your own, you know. And so you've got to understand that. Lead up principle number 3 is be willing to do what others won't. And there's nothing more that a leader appreciates than somebody that's willing to do whatever tasks at hand. And again, it has to be honest and beneficial, ethical, those types of things. But being able to do what others won't do, that's going to be a key point that stands you out, right? And then thinking outside of your job description. So many people get tied up on it's not my job. And the it's not my job people are always going to be unhappy, and they're never going to be promoted because they always see things as what's in it for me. And what's in it for me never gets people promoted. Okay. And then being noticed is uh, your ability to influence, right? You'll be noticed by people above you when you do these things, and that helps you to influence. They ask you to do something that no one else wants to do, and you go knock it out, and you come back, and what else do we got? Right? You want to influence your boss. That's a great way to do it, is to be that guy. Principle number 4, do more than manage. Actually lead. And this is more geared towards managers and the management level. But managers work with processes and with things. And leaders work with people. Right? You lead people, you manage things. And here's a comparison. You know, leaders think long term. Leaders see within the larger context, being able to see the big picture, paint the vision, and set a direction. Right? Leaders push boundaries. They want to make things better. They want to progress. They want to evolve change. Leaders put emphasis on intangibles, you know, morale and motivation and influence, those types of things. Leaders learn to rely on intuition. You get that gut feeling like this is what I should be doing, and you go do it. And leaders also invest power in others, right? My goal is to have everybody under me making good decisions and having the ability to do that, which in turn, one, it makes my job easier because I've lessened my burden. And two, I'm allowing myself to develop other people to be leaders. And then leaders see themselves as agents of change. You bring someone into an organization and you tell them, we want you to turn it around, right? You have to be a person of influence with the ability to change. Principle number 5 is invest in relational chemistry. So developing relationships. And this is one of the most important things. If you don't understand what drives your leader, if you don't understand what your leader's priorities are, if you don't understand your leader's vision, if you don't understand anything about your leader, it's going to be really hard to develop the relationship that you need to influence. How many times have you walked into your boss's office and asked him what his goals are? What's his vision? that would shock your boss. And say, well, I know you have your goals in your head, but do you have them written down? Can I see them? You know, would you like some help developing some? I think we should set some goals. Right? And earning your leader's trust is key there. And then understand your leader's weaknesses. And if you have strengths in those areas, try to complement that, help him. And respect your leader's family. One of the worst things is when you meet an employee and the out in the public and they're with their family. It'd be disrespectful to walk up and say, oh, this, and start talking bad about the person's family. It's disrespectful. You just don't want to do that. You lose all your credibility. Number 6 is to be prepared. You're going in, he's investing time in you, and time is something that we can't get back, right? And so you have to be prepared. Work very, very hard. For every minute you spend to meet with him, spend 10 minutes preparing. Don't make your boss think for you is a good one. It's if you have questions, your leader should be able to ask you questions to help you to arrive to that point. But you shouldn't be going in and asking him to make decisions for you when you normally know what to do. Then bring something to the table. Add value through resources or ideas, opportunities, some things that you have. Add some value, right? And then just, again, be prepared. Learn to speak your boss's language. And then to the point. Don't spend 45 minutes beating around the bush just to ask a question. We want to understand what you need and what support you need and what empowerment do you need. All we want to see as leaders are results. And then give a return on your leader's investment. So the time that you've taken, if it's 10 minutes or an hour, they should have gotten a return on that investment. So those are the 6 principles of leading up. And I know that there's a lot to unpackage there, but it should help anyone that's stuck, especially with the bad boss. Just sit down and talk to them. Try to understand them a little bit. What drives them? Maybe they're frustrated with the upper management and they're taking it out on everybody else. And we don't know what they're going through. Maybe they're just a terrible leader and not a fit for an organization. That could be the case. If that's the case, it is what it is. But here's 10 principles of a good leader. Okay, leaders take on the tough jobs and they're problem solvers. Leaders pay their dues. One thing that I never ask people to do is something that I wouldn't do myself. You should always be that type of person. Leaders work in obscurity. One of the hardest things is to not get the credit for something. As people, we want credit for the work that we do. And I'm not saying if somebody steals the credit, but a lot of times a lot of the hard work you're doing, your boss is getting the recognition for. And that's a difficult thing. But being able to work in that position is a key. And leaders succeed with difficult people. A lot of times, your most difficult person is the one that's seen so many flavors of the month and has never been listened to and has solutions for 90% of the problems that you face, but no one's willing to listen or allow them to try it. And so they become frustrated. They go from a good employee to the difficult employee. And good leaders know that you need to understand why they're frustrated. And what can you do? How can we empower you? How can we support the things that you would like to get done? Then leaders put themselves on the line for their people. Whether we like it or not, we're the ones to blame, right? And so we have to be able to take that blame. And leaders, they admit faults, but they don't make excuses for it. And we understand that we need help. A bad leader, you have a bad leader when they never want help from other people. If they're not trying to improve, you haven't seen any growth, you know that they're not a good leader. And leaders always do more than expected. Leaders are always the first to step up and help. Leaders do things that's not their job responsibility. Take responsibility for their responsibilities. If you make a bad decision, you're the one on the hook. Take responsibility for it. And I'll leave you with this. This was in the book, the acronym for influence, which I appreciated because these are some things that we can all work on, right? Integrity. So integrity builds relationships on trust. Having integrity is something that seems to be fleeting today. And nurturing, that means caring about other people. Faith, it's faith in people, believing that you have the people. You just need to do a little investing. Listening, right? Listening to what others have to say, putting your phone down, looking them in the eye, having a conversation. Understanding, right? You see things from their point of view, and normally you can come to a compromise. Enlarging, which helps others to become bigger. Navigating, which is helping other people through their difficulties. Connecting, which initiates positive relationships, and empowering, which gives people the power to lead. So if you have any questions, anything, that's all I've got for today.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Joe. That was great. And definitely some good points for folks to take away. So did have a couple questions that came through, and obviously folks feel free to type some in now while we're going through this. But one person was kind of asking kind of that question about, if you're taking that time to develop others, trying to develop them into good teammates, giving them that training and that encouragement, what do you say about then just basically grooming them for them to jump ship and take a new opportunity somewhere else? Any advice or words of wisdom as far as that's concerned?
I look at it the other way around. Is what if I don't invest in them? Then I'm stuck with them, right? And if you're treating them well and things are going well, then they're not going to leave. So it doesn't really matter to me. If they leave, then I know that I left a piece of me with them. And I wish them the best. I hope that they can grow. And I have 7 or 8 people that I've groomed myself that are all maintenance managers or above right now, that were basically mechanics or not even in maintenance when I started working with them. So a lot of them may leave. But if you don't invest in them, what do you end up with?
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that spin on it, taking pride and then, wishing people well, and hoping, like you said, they become the you at the next position and can
Well,
help
what
groom
if they stay?
the next
What if
person.
they stay and they
Right.
haven't grown at all? What have they done for the organization? And now you're stuck with them.
Yep.
So would you rather have somebody that adds value for a few years and leaves, or somebody that's never added value and stays in the organization? You can always
Yep.
develop others.
Cool. All right. So then another question came in about back towards the beginning when you were talking about leadership and position. So this person said, even though leadership is not a position, to truly make a difference or have a voice in an organization, you need to be recognized as such and be promoted to be able to lead and develop. So they just wanted you to kind of elaborate a little bit more about leadership and position and kind of how they relate and how you can kind of work that angle.
The only way they relate is that position, people are forced to follow you. I know, you know, I'll give you an example. There's a place that I worked at previously where the guy he wasn't a janitor. He's basically took care of grounds and did a lot of running around and basically a gopher. And this is an organization where at this one site there was almost 3,000 employees, right? So basically, in most people's eyes, this guy was a nobody, but he had the ear of the COO of the company and had that level of influence where he could say, hey, I'm seeing these issues. Can you help me resolve them? This is how I'd like to go about fixing it. Right. And he was nobody. So, you know, there is a positional aspect of leadership, yes, but influence will supersede that position any day of the week. It's kind of the way I look at it. You've got to be able to influence others. It doesn't matter where you are in the organization.
All right. So the other questions were a little bit more housekeeping. So a couple folks have been asking when this recording will be up online. So I'll try and get that done within the next couple hours. Sometimes the GoToWebinar system takes a little bit for it to save and reformat and whatever. But we should have that up this afternoon. So if you're for sure interested in getting the link as soon as I've got it up there, just shoot me an email or pop a note into the questions box, and I'll be sure to email you directly when it's up. So just wanted to answer that. Joe's got his contact info up here on the page, and I highly recommend folks taking note of that. He wasn't lying at the beginning when he said he wants to give back and wants to add value. So this is a guy that you kind of want in your quote unquote Rolodex. And I know if you ever have questions about the topics from today or pretty much anything to do in the reliability scheme of things, he's a guy you could for sure turn to and get that help or advice or just, someone to bounce things off of. So for sure take note of that before I switch the screen here.
And if
Joe,
anybody
thank you
wants
so
a
much.
copy of the presentation, just send me an email at the contact.
Okay, yeah,
email.
perfect.
I can send that out.
Yeah, I'm sure I usually get a lot of questions about that. So yeah, definitely reach out to Joe on that. And so just to kind of wrap up, so, as Joe said, bettering yourself is one of the top things that you need to do to be a good leader. So just want to make note that we do have our summer sale going on for all of our online classes. So definitely check that out if those are of interest to you. Information's on our website. Here's our contact info, so you can be in touch with us directly. For those of you that had some of those questions, I'll be sure to get those over to Joe specifically also, so he can follow up with you, and if you want to, discuss those items further. But with that, I think we'll let you guys go. We're almost up against the hour here, and hope everybody has a great rest of the day, great rest of July, and we'll be back at you guys here soon with what we're going to be talking about for August. So Joe, thanks again so much, and thanks everybody for being with us today.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you guys soon.